I think we are on live.
Wow,
We
hi
are a
Vicky.
little bit like, hi. We
How are you
are on
doing?
live. I'm good. Just a little bit, Frida. We are now on live on Facebook.
Okay.
And then you can find all of us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us. And if you do not know whom we are the Platinum Platform, and I'm your dear warm host from Singapore, Vicky Esther Cheng. And you see Prida just here, the pretty, beautiful girl. She's either here or here, but we are right here. Please, if you are with us on Facebook, and if you do see us, please share this. And I'm going to share this with my friends in my personal um, Facebook account and also my Platinum platform. And you can always see us on YouTube talk about life. And I'm looking at some of these eyeballs going in and out of Facebook. Hi, Prita, thank you so much for being here. It is a very social talk we have today, ladies and gentlemen, because I think it's so important to kind of temper that temperatures for a state of our life. Prita is with us from Singapore. What a beautiful woman that you see right here or here. And we are going to have this coffee table talk about women and girls, and particularly growing pains and growing in Singapore and in the region here. Myself, Vicky Esther Chang, it is 2:28 right here in Singapore, and we are always welcoming to the rest of the world. You can always visit us with the right papers, with a passport. You can come in either by ferry or by plane. And because Singapore is an island, people do come here by plane. And a shout out to the Singapore national carrier, the Singapore Airlines, the number one top airlines in the world. And that's a shout out to the Singapore Airlines. And welcome, Prita. Welcome to the podcast and the podcast season, State of Our World, Women and Girls. It is a coffee table talk. Prita, tell us about where you are and whom you are. A little bit about yourself, Prita.
Okay, hi Vicky. Hi, how you doing? I'm all good today. Today's the weekend. Yes, I'm in Singapore and enjoying the scenery outside and just enjoying my day today, taking a break from work, from my lecturing and teaching. Just wanted to chill out today, just do the podcast with you. Yeah, that's all about it.
Yeah, a bit about the background of Prita. She's a double master's for communications and PR public relations. I'm so
International,
glad to
yeah,
be yeah, and she will
international
tell a little
relations.
bit more. Yeah, international relations, double masters in communications and international relations. And we've got people coming and watching us, two beautiful girls here. Thank you. Now,
Oh, that's lovely.
ladies and gentlemen, whom you are watching us, please comment and tell us where you are watching us from, and post us some questions if we could answer that. Today is really a very social talk that we're going to have with you for the next 20 minutes, talking about women and girls and some of our growing pains as women and girls, some of our, I think some of our stories. And Prita is my colleague at the university, and where I teach digital media for the master's degree course. And she is a multi-talented woman, and She
Thank
grew
you.
up in Singapore and also in Australia. I think, Frida, tell us a bit about yourself. I mean, we have so many dinners and so many lunches, and we go out for shopping. And just a couple of days ago, we had our shopping and we bought clothes, etc. But you do know that this podcast, I'm so serious. I talk about the doomsday. I talk about we need to be prepared. But really, I'm a person that has a lot of hope for the world. I mean, we are in this world whereby I think the world has opened up to women and girls. The world has opened up to a lot of people. Never before you have access to the rest of the world through technology, or never before the really a part, right? A lot of people say, hey, I want to wait for I want to wait for retirement before I travel the world. Don't wait. I don't know if you ever reach there. So I always say that having a ticket, a plane is it's a form of public transportation. And Frida has traveled the world also. Frida, tell us about your education background and your teaching background, Frida. Tell us a
Okay.
couple.
So basically, I kind of actually I started off studying in Singapore, and then after that, went overseas to study my undergraduate studies. I did a bachelor in arts, and then following that, I went and did my double masters, like you mentioned, that was correct, international communication, and the second one is a little bit difficult to remember. It's called international relations. People get confused, yeah, because there's two international, the two words just formed together. But I would say, yeah, I was studying there for about 5 to 6 years. I did my undergraduate and postgraduate studies. It was really fun studying in Australia. I had a great time in my university. It was in Sydney. And I met lots of people actually from various backgrounds and various cultures. Some of these people, because you never really meet them in your life. Like they're from different culture, like they're from Dubai. You can't really find someone from Dubai in primary or secondary school in Singapore. Not very often you will see. And my courses were like on intercultural communication and cultural studies. So these kind of subjects, they are about, learning about different cultures, learning about language barriers, learning about how to adapt to a different culture when you work and study in a different country. It was very amazing. It was a very amazing experience for me because when I met these people, I learned from them a lot. And I also went for
Mm.
various festivals, Spanish festivals and all those things. I think overall, I did enjoy my studying experience in Australia and Sydney. I had a great time, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've
Um,
learned a lot from you. You're such a woman who is so open, embracing, um, and embracing of different culture. And I wanna talk about you. Did you have is it an opportunity whereby you are able to source for resources and source for funds for such an expensive educational experience?
So I was a permanent resident in Australia. I lived there for about 6 years. And because as a permanent resident, we do get some, there's some benefits, right, from the government. And then at that point of time, as a permanent resident, as I lived there, we do get some, like little cash money here and there, from the government and all that. But I think it was very good because our fees are subsidized throughout. And I think I used the opportunity to study there. And another thing I must say is I did work with a lot of my classmates from overseas, and some of them were also international students. So I think with the subsidies and all that, I think it just applies for
Um,
certain years, certain times only. But when you do your postgraduate, I think there's not much of subsidies, but it's okay. I just made use of the experience and wanted to study everything and come back to Singapore. Yeah.
do you think that that opened up your perspective of the world?
I think definitely because I was a very reserved person when I was in Singapore. I didn't
Mm.
really talk very much. I was very shy, and I didn't really. I always keep to myself. I'm that kind of a person, I'm very shy, and I always stay with my own clique. But when I went overseas, right, because Australia is a very highly individualistic culture. And Singapore is a highly collectivistic culture where people are always in groups, see, in Singapore. So when I went to
Oh.
a different country, right? Yeah, this is the Hofstede Dimensions. I was teaching my class about it as well. So when I went to Australia, I realized that we all have to be very individualistic in our thinking. We need to get to think about our own lives. Need to meet people. We need to be more vocal. And even in class, there's tutorial participation, and that actually encouraged us to communicate more in the class as well. So whenever the lecturer asks us a question or professor asks us a question, we need to raise our hand and we need to answer it. For that, we will get grades, we get marks, points for that. So
Mm.
these kind of things made me more vocal, made me more open-minded. helped me to adjust and adapt to the culture over there, which I feel like I've changed a lot from the Singaporean lifestyle and
Wow.
then going there and becoming, because like I said, right, because Australia is very highly individualistic as compared to Singapore. And I really noticed that. I also worked with Metkin, Mr. Metkin actually. He was the MP there, Member of Parliament. I was working with him as an intern. I did some things on my own. I worked with a non-governmental, not non-profit organization called All Together Now, where I did a short film. Okay, the short film is actually about discouraging racism. So I remember interviewing random
Wow.
people on the street, talking to them face to face about racism and about their experiences. It's a very sensitive topic, but I will say that they really voiced out about about themselves. So I got to interview a person called Mr. Andy Mintru. He is a famous actor in Australia. Okay, Andy Mintru, and he was also the ambassador for Altogether Now. Yeah, so when I got myself involved, in all these things, and as an intern, volunteering, I learned a lot. Right. So over there were a lot of
Wow.
opportunities in the media perspective because my education was more on communication and media. So over there, I did try to do a lot of volunteering and interning, yeah, just to enhance my knowledge also and learn from other people. Definitely got to learn from others. Yeah.
I mean, within such a short speech, you're able to encapsulate some of your learning experience. It's very, very like a breath of fresh air. Definitely, I think you highlighted something that um, you highlighted the difference between
Yes.
the environment of learning here in Singapore versus learning there in Australia. Tell us about that collective thinking or the collective culture here
Collectivistic
in
culture.
Singapore. Yeah, tell me,
Okay,
tell me.
so as I read about it, what I understand is, I mean, this is what Gert Hofstede, he had actually kind of
Yeah,
understood and he did the research, right? Like Singapore,
yeah,
if you look at the index, right, we do have a highly collectivistic culture. It's not wrong,
mm,
it's not good or bad, it's just the way things are, that people follow a certain structure, certain norms to stay
mm,
in a clique. Group decisions are important,
yeah,
group norms are significant. But in
yeah.
Australia, Sydney, I think especially where I live there, I notice people are very different with their dressing. People are
Wow.
more into like they dress up whatever they want. Like, it can
Yeah,
be lots of tattoos, lots of piercings. They may not feel uncomfortable about it. Sometimes I see them, walking on the streets without slippers or sandals. For them, it's a norm. Like they don't care. So I think it's a difference about how you think. They're very individualistic. Over here, they're very collectivistic.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think it's not wrong
yeah.
or anything like that. It's just the way how things
It
are.
is, it
And
is. It is how it is, yeah.
yeah, I think it's okay. And not everyone can just adapt to a culture in Australia easily.
Mm,
Because I know I
mm.
remember that some of my classmates when they were really really very depressed. I remember one or two of them wanted
Really?
to yes. I remember one of my classmates was from Turkey and she
Yeah.
couldn't adapt to the Australian culture and she wanted to return to her home. She was very
Wow.
depressed, she couldn't take it. I mean, many of us, I mean, we go to Australia because we want to study and all that, but some of us
Yeah.
couldn't, and some of the international students, they could not adapt easily. So I managed somehow, even though I became a PR and all that, but I did manage somehow and lived there for 6 years, and I did enjoy myself eventually. Yeah.
Wow. Is there a reason why they couldn't adapt and they chose to um, or they yearn to return back to their countries? Is there a reason why?
I Well, I don't exactly remember, but if I'm not wrong, I'm just trying to recall a little bit
Yeah,
here and there. I
yeah,
remember my friend was telling me the weather difference. Sometimes, it's very
yeah,
harsh, can be very hot over there, and then suddenly it's raining for days. It becomes very
yeah,
depressing because when it rains for days, right, it's
yeah,
very difficult to
yes,
travel around. The country is very
yeah,
big. Another
yeah,
reason is because everything closes very early. Like for example, like maybe like
yeah.
one of my friend from China, she was telling me that it's very difficult to like she has to buy food early, like dinner early by 5:30. It's kind of ridiculous because in China, they eat very
Yeah.
late, like 8 9 o'clock.
Oh,
Sometimes she's yeah, they even eat at 10 and they eat outside. And but then in
yeah,
Australia, Sydney especially, some of the places they close so early, so she has to travel out, like further, like Chinatown area to get food or something. So it's become very inconvenient. And
Yeah.
it feels very like, for her personally, she felt like she didn't want to stay there. But then somehow I think she moved to the town area and things like that.
Can I ask you, Prita, because you've said a lot of things that I do understand because I stayed in various countries before. What are the three things you think is important for someone to really thrive in a foreign country? What are the three
Three
things?
things. Wow,
Yeah,
this is something
that
I
you can take
haven't really
away and
thought about.
share. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I will say one thing. Okay,
yeah,
I lived with my family before that, before traveling. I was very young when I went to Australia.
yeah,
I was a teenager. Okay, so
yeah,
I will say number one is to be confident of yourself.
yeah.
Confidence. Okay, as a woman. Okay, you need to learn how to speak to people, communicate with others, even though you do not know who they are. I think it's important to make friends. So you need to have that level of confidence to do so.
Yeah,
Communicate with people, make friends. Number two
yeah.
is to adjust in terms of their lifestyle. Maybe, for example, if someone invites you, like,
Mm,
hey, go out for maybe for to the club or to the bar or something,
yeah.
you shouldn't reject them immediately. I mean, unless you just try to go with the flow. Maybe if you do not want to have a drink,
Go with the
just sit
flow.
around, just chit chat, socialize. I will just say, do
Yeah.
not reject people's offers. Yeah,
Do
I
not
think we should
reject.
always try
Yeah,
to, yeah, try not to reject, because you lose your opportunities as time goes by. And the last thing I
right.
must say, as a student in the past, I would say that, try to read more books. Okay, read more books, try to
Re-
improve your English. Yeah, read about what's happening in Australia, even the news, right? I think just read about it, know what's happening in Sydney. So I remember that in Sydney, there's a lot of interesting things happening. The dust storm, the weather and all that. You got to know about what's happening. When people talk to you, you can
Yeah,
share about this information. Then they think that you're relevant. You see. So I will say,
yeah.
yeah, basically these are my three things: confidence, being knowledgeable, being able to read, and don't reject offers from people, invitations from people. Always try to get
Yeah.
to know people more, so you have a larger circle also. Yeah.
Can I say that, can I ask you, how do you think you would be different if you had continued your this learning journey in Singapore rather than in Australia? What do you think it's going to be like, and how do you think you would have grown?
Okay, this is very hard, but I have to assume. Okay, I don't
Precisely, I
know.
want to make it hard for you.
But actually, I can answer this
Just
question.
kind
The
of
reason is,
imagine.
yeah,
Just kind of imagine. Yeah.
okay, I can answer this question because I was teaching at NUS, the National
Yeah.
University of Singapore.
Tell
I've
us.
seen how my studies, I've seen how my students have studied over there, what they've been doing. So what happened was, when I was at NUS as a teaching assistant, I started off
Yeah.
as a TA for 1 year and all that, and then after
Yeah.
that, I moved on to become an instructor. So I've seen that some of the students are just very, very hardworking. They're just too hardworking. Even before the
Hardworking. Too
semester
hardworking.
starts, they're already sitting down there at the library and already preparing. I'm like, what are they preparing for? I think
You're
it's
looking
like
at
a
us.
cultural thing. Yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, NUS is a
Yeah.
it's a good university. I mean,
Mm.
definitely, I will
Yeah.
say that given the opportunity to teach in a university like that, I must say I
Yeah.
was very lucky. When I
Yeah.
went for the interview and all, I was just very lucky to get the job. But I must say that if I was a student here in the past in
Yeah.
Singapore, I may not be very vocal. Probably, I would
Yeah.
have still, maybe I would have joined a group of a clique of friends or someone. I would
Okay.
have joined a group of people, probably, maybe until now I'll be very close with them. But in terms of being very vocal, I may not be very vocal. I might be quite shy.
Mm.
I might be afraid to speak up in certain things. That's what I
Yeah.
assume to be. Because Singapore's culture is the power distance. We have a higher power distance, right? Authority
Mm.
is, we
Yeah.
have this. Since the index is higher, I would say that students always, we have to always, we cannot argue with our teachers. But in Australia, sometimes we can be more vocal, and we can
Yeah.
just try to, you get what I mean, the Western culture,
Yeah.
we can just try to be like open about it, which I
Yeah.
notice also. So yeah, the power
Yeah.
distance is higher, and that's why I can see the
Mm.
differences. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you brought up a lot of things that I would say, and thank you for that. You
Okay.
being so clear in your explanation and you being so clear in your communication. I think the viewers have an understanding that, some of the places that we grow up in could really
Mhm.
mold a character. Don't you think so?
Honestly speaking, I learned a lot. I mean, I met challenges in my
Mm.
life, okay, being
Yeah,
alone in a country, being
yeah,
able to, like for example, like cooking, for example, I learned how to cook,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
learned how to do things on my own, wash my own clothes, being
yeah,
able to organize my time because there's no one there to like really help me. My parents are not with me, my
yeah,
immediate parents, right? So I'm mostly on my
yeah,
own. I have an auntie there, but she's living a bit further away. So what I do sometimes I go and visit her and all. That's quite fun too. But I'm
yeah.
saying like, we got to do
Yeah.
our own things. Yeah,
Can
and
I ask can I ask that gave you that opportunity that you never even think of as compared to your Turkish friend, etc. That gave you the opportunity to grow as a girl, to become the woman and to become the professional woman that you are. A lot of us have taken it for granted, but you look back, that was something that is important, right? That
yes,
has made
I
you
think
who you
I
are. Yeah,
Yes, of course. I mean, I will see
yeah,
everything as a learning experience. Even
yeah,
if I were to study in US or UK, I mean, it don't matter wherever. I mean, but
yeah,
it's about the learning experience, you see. So being
yeah,
able to get the opportunity to study in Sydney, being
yeah,
able to do the degree and double master's degree, I think I learned a lot just by meeting people also, and
yeah,
being able to get myself equipped with various internships and volunteering work. I think meeting
yeah.
people is very significant to my life. You get to know how they are, about their lifestyles, about their culture, and being able
Yeah.
to enlarge your social circle is very important, especially in the professional
Yeah, yeah,
space as well. Yeah,
yeah. I love to hear you talk more about this tomorrow.
sure.
I come from a different space. I come from a different space, totally. Um, uh, I would love you to ask me anything that makes
Oh
me
yeah,
different from
definitely.
you.
Okay, I think yeah, so probably Vicky, maybe you would like to share about your education experience, especially a tertiary one, something that interesting that you want to share
Tertiary
about.
ones. Okay, I'd like to talk about maybe two or three snippets of my life that made me the person as I am right now. I think, um, particularly, I remember, and I think if I look back, some of the things that really impacted me that now I can see that made me who I am is I think when I grew up, I come from a different space than you. And I think
Okay.
this is important to share with our audience because our audience, um, they come from different parts of the world, not only locally or the region, they come from different parts of the world. Um, I would like to share about when I grew up as a child, I lost my dad at a very young age. I lost my dad at about 7 or 8 through to liver cancer. He was smoking. He was a heavy drinker. Um, I don't know how much it's impacted me, but I do think that as I grew up, I think that health is most important. If you lose your health, you lose your life. And if you lose your
Yes.
life, no matter how much money you've got nothing. If you lose your health,
Correct.
you've got nothing. I think I think growing up is so important. Like, why are we talking about growing up pains and growing up stories? I think as we grow older, we feel that, and we realize that we are being molded by our history, and we are being molded like what you say, the environment that we're in, the books that we read, the understanding that makes us internalize certain values that we now deduce that these are important in life or in the world. So my dad passed when I was 7 and 8, and I remembered my mom struggled a lot. Um, she did not have the education that we have. I know being in that generation, um, she did not have, but my mom is. My mom was ambidextrous. Ambidextrous meaning that she's able to write with both hands and she's able to sign with both hands. And that is an indication of the high intelligence that she has. But of course, the world did not give her the opportunity of a great education that we're given. So I feel that we are living in such a world that we give thanks to the opportunities given to us, and we give thanks to the environment that's given to us as a woman. My mom grew up taking care of us, you know, being a woman, and she had to take care of us with me and my family, the kids, as an independent woman. So with that, I really, really respected her as a single mom. And
Yeah,
of course, when you're
absolutely.
young, you never think about that, right? But as you grow older, you kind of realize that hey, life can be a struggle. You know, no matter where you come from. I mean, people do say Singapore as a paradise. I mean, I talk to my German friends. I talk to a lot of highly respected professionals, and they tell me that hey, Singapore is a paradise, and you guys don't even know that. And I do think that when I juxtapose many countries that I travel, because I've traveled over 20 countries, I've traveled um, to over 30 cities, I start to appreciate um, the place that we are in. Of course, you go to the beautiful parts of Europe, historical places, and you start to, and I've been to America, I've been to many parts of Europe, of course, Asia, of course. You kind of juxtapose, there are places that you think the grass is always greener, right? You look at the historical places in Europe, you look at Paris, the city of romance. You look at the beautiful architecture in Eastern Europe, like in Austria or deeper parts of Europe. You start to think that, hey, those are like huge, beautiful places, you know, as compared to this part of the world. But and of course we always think that the grass is always greener. You start to think that why can't I have a bigger house in Singapore? Why do I need to live in an apartment? But if you think back through the struggles that we have, that I think back my mom, you know, the kind of struggles that she has as a woman taking care of, you know, as a single mom, as a widow, that she has to take care of the kids. I know I respected her as a woman, but I also respected that a woman goes through that grit without saying anything. She may complain things a lot, a little bit here and there. You know, she could be long-winded, but hey, you know the kind of grit that is unspoken, the kind of hard work that they go through, the kind of like just going through the grind and pushing through, even though it's tough. I think I saw this when I was young, and so when I think the story I want to share with the viewers and with you is that um, I think it's always a privilege when you struggle, as particularly when you struggle as you when you are younger. I think you grow with that kind of value that can't be transmitted through education. It is something that you grow up with. So I think it's a privilege. You know, the hardship that we went through as a family. I remember as a child, I worked very hard. I studied alone for my PSLE, and ladies and gentlemen, PSLE means Primary School Living Examinations. PSLE, that's why you call it. I studied
Understand.
alone, and
Mhm.
I think you studied that too, right, Frida? You
Yeah, studying
and I
primary school, yeah.
remember, yeah, I remember um, writing one composition of continuous writing, they call it nowadays in schools, a day. I wrote it on my own. I thought about topics. I wrote it, um, and then I really tried to memorize a lot of things on my own. I mean, I did things that I only knew when I did things at that age, the way I knew. I mean, I remember I got this book that I love because This is my PSL. I'm not quite sure if you know that, but I still have that because
Now you still
I
have it.
kind of
Wow.
drew. Yeah, I kind of drew
Oh,
because I still wanted to refer to some of the
oh.
English the complex. I
Mhm.
still buy and I still give as a gift, and it's into its fifth million copy Preston. I still do because I still want to be sure that as comprehension closed. I still wanted to make sure that my English and the tenses is technically correct. So I
That's
grew up
good.
in a place where, yeah, I grew up in a place where, but I think it made me understand that um, being alone and independent, because without a dad, I had to do things on my own. I didn't want to be a burden to my family, to my sisters, even at a very young age. At 10, I did housework. I did the supplementary exercises. I studied the dictionary. I studied and made sure I worked hard at things that was I was able to grab hold of, not coming from a very wealthy family. But I think that kind of perseverance and the kind of going through the grit at a young age, in that kind of realm that I was, made me who I am. And then of course, going to universities in Singapore wasn't easy. I think you brought up the fact that people worked hard, and I think I was one of the people that really buried myself in the books. Coming through the system, it really kind of forces you to really, really be technically competent, right? I think the
Also, I would like
educational
to.
system.
Uh-huh.
Tell me.
No, I just would like to add something because I
Yep.
mean, when you said something about being hardworking, I
Yep.
remembered when I went to Australia, when I went to Sydney to study,
Yeah.
it was very difficult for me in the sense that, the standard of English
Mm.
was very high, very, very high. I don't know why I felt that. I just felt like that. Even though even though I feel like I can speak fluently and all that, when it comes to grading, my professors were very strict. They were like very old school and traditional.
Yeah.
Every single sentence they would be like checking on grammar. They were like that, and they were quite. I mean, they were in their 50s or 60s. Some of them, which is good. And I think I learned a lot actually from them. So what I did was to improve myself. I did attend some of these skills study support classes on my own. I wanted to improve my language further. I think that was a good experience also when because that was one of the reasons why I feel I improved a lot in terms of my language, living in Australia as
Yeah.
well, because they speak
Wow.
very well. They use very good vocabulary. And my classmates, it's very unbelievable. They are always on their, on their toes. When professor asks them a question, they will answer immediately. They are like really good. And I just wanted to be like some of them. I try to improve myself also in that context. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think going through a particular education whereby we have that sense of ownership of our own growth, that makes a difference. Um, and and then the other opportunity of education is when I was in France. I actually enrolled myself in um, uh, a French university to learn French. I didn't have to, but I told myself, hey, when I was young, studying abroad is it would be my dream, but it's not open to everyone because you do need to have the financial muscle by the family to finance you. But fortunately, um, when I was in France, I was able to learn the language. And I think I did learn something because, during the winter, when it snows and when it rains, Prita, if you've been to Australia, I think Sydney is really developed. It's a huge city. I'm not sure how it is over there. I've not been to Sydney, but when I was in France, I lived at near to the beach, um,
Okay.
and it wasn't a big city, but I had to travel to the city almost every day. So when it rains and it um, snows, at the train station, because I had to take an old, it's not old, but in Singapore you call it old, but in that country it's really, really new. And but the station does not have a big shelter. So when it rains and when it snows, you kind of freeze. And when that 0 degrees and below 0 degrees, and when the wind blows at you, no matter how thick your clothes is, it doesn't matter. It just penetrates into your skin or into your bone. And I think um, telling myself that I had to go through it because I chose that road
Mhm.
was important, because a lot of times I think I want to share with the audience is it is so easy for people to kind of just turn back or drop a decision to say that, hey, this is not the way I want. It wasn't what I chose. It's almost likened to you being an entrepreneur, because I've been an entrepreneur. I think that kind of life right now, or the environment in us around us right now, calls for perseverance, call for grit, call for you just pushing yourself um, beyond your limit, beyond what you think you can do. So I think that kind of mindset came from um, your value, and also where you grew up in. Um, and of course, I think um, I enjoyed what you talked about, for the last 20 minutes, um, about staying in Australia, and you had the privilege of doing that. And I really enjoyed that, because many of us do not have that privilege. Um, but I did enjoy, and I totally, totally am in consensus that we need to have a different environment to learn how to embrace differences, to accept um, when things are different. It could be people, it could be an environment, it could be the environmental demands. If you don't embrace that kind of differences, you fall short of the opportunities that was presented to you for you to learn and to grow. And I really love that, how you articulated that you grow as a girl, you grow as a woman, you grow as a person. Um, and I definitely grew as I lived round the world. I lived in China for some years. I lived in Europe for some years. And I would think that my takeaway is, I always say, is internal growth. You always have to be conscious about growing yourself and not staying in the same place. Growing not intellectually or competence, but growing as a person, embracing differences, and having this enlarging your domain of capacity to understand and to love. That's very important, because differences exist everywhere. Um,
Yes, I
Differences
agree.
exist when you go to a different place. If you live in the same street, you grow up in the same street, and everyone stays there, there is a danger, Prita. If you stay there, you think that the world is that. And the truth is, with the enlarging of the domain that we're in, the domain of the social media, the domain of the world, with this domain that we're in the digital universe, it presents us the opportunity to understand why people speak differently, why people behave differently, think differently. And the first thing we when things are different, our first reaction is, I can't accept that, because um, the brain is not trained to take things differently, because it's just going chugging the same way. So I think there must be a conscious effort for you to tell yourself, from the consciousness, to tell yourself the subliminal consciousness, that if things are different, the first reaction is not to reject, but the first reaction is to say yes, and then think why, and then embrace and understand. And then you are able to start to love and tolerate. You know what I'm trying to say? I think what
Yes, I understand.
education teaches us, beyond the school teaches us literacy. Going is like, it's just like going to the school. It gives you this textbook. It gives you the textbook about the competence of construction of the English language. Um, But I think what is important is beyond the literacy, but the growth as a human. And I enjoy talking to you because you're an international woman. You know, you can go back to Australia, you can travel around the world, and you're going to Europe very soon for holidays, for vacation. But I would say that without that expansion of your domain, of your mindset, which comes with looking around, reading, looking, experiencing, you will always be just living down the street. I mean, figuratively. You know, Prita, if you know what I'm trying to say, you're always living in that little street. And of course, that street could be a beautiful cosmopolitan street, but you're still in that street. But I think it's important
Yeah.
through education as a woman, education as a human being, like yourself, living and studying and growing up in Australia, you start to be such a different woman that you start to, when you come back and you look at Singapore, you would have been a different person if you were just to be growing up in Singapore. And not that Singapore is a bad place. I mean, Singapore is one of the most cosmopolitan, open places in the world. But I would always say that if you have the opportunity, bootstrap, get the money, and reach out and grow. And my take for my education, and I'm so um, appreciative of the world that I grew up in, the struggles that I had as a child. Um, um, you know, my dad passed, and my mom was a widow, and my mom has passed for 10 years. I think it's the 10th anniversary this year. I mean, there's so much struggle that I had, which the world does not see because it's internalized, it's intrinsic. But I think what's internal and what's intrinsic, the things that you do not see, makes us grow as a human being. Like, for example, when I was studying in France, in an international, I would say that in international French class, you meet with people almost about 60 different nationalities within a class. I've got students who do not want to sit with each other because their countries are at war. And I don't
Oh,
want to
wow.
say, you know, because they have been ingrained politically to be different. And people are using that, and I think that it's so important to be conscious that as a humanity, you take away that, you accept each person as who they are as an individual, which is so important. I mean, I sit at the table whereby people want to be friends with me. I mean, thanks to the name of Singapore, and thanks to us embracing different cultures and have the ability to want to understand and tolerate, and embrace, and want to try to love each other. I mean, love in a very loose definition. I feel that I am privileged, as a person, that people do want to make friends with me, even though my neighbors hated each other. Really, literally, when I was living in France, my French neighbors, this French woman hated this other French woman. They're gossiping about each other to me, and they wanted to embrace me and kiss me as an individual. I mean, I love that. But I think sinking and thinking why it is so, because and why can't we make each other love each other more? I think that critical factor would be being consciously wanting to embrace and being consciously wanting to understand each other. It is so difficult when we try to generalize. It's very, very dangerous. But if we accept each other, and try to understand each other, that makes it easier. So my experience, starting in an international class in France, because there are 60 nationalities, they come from different countries. Just an example, you have from the south part of the hemisphere, from New Zealand, to the north part of in Canada, to the mid part, in around the region, like in Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Japanese, of course, and then in the Middle East, you've got someone from Oman, Pakistan. We've even got people from the Syrians, the Palestinians, versus the Armenians in the same class. Um, you know, we see that kind of different the different perspective of each other, even though we didn't go very deeply. And that's where I respected the environment that you're in, because you're saying that in your class there are so many different people and they can't cope with the changes that came with the external environment in Sydney, right? And that's why I think our conversation goes deep and is important, because we have to be able to cope with differences. Um, and then it starts with us, right? It's so easy to say that you have to accept me, right? But I think it comes from us accepting the other person, and being patient when other people don't understand you, and when people become impatient with you. I think you have to have that little bit of extra tolerance, and extra patience, and to be conscious that we have to be the people that becomes higher when other people become lower. So I think that makes us successful, and I think women has that. I mean, I speak for myself as an individual. I always tell my students, if they start to, when I was teaching at Polytechnic, when they come from a different country as a group, I say, do not become an enclave. Like what you say, come collectively as a group. Because when you come collectively as a group, external people feel that they can't um, penetrate in the group, and they can't make friends with you because you become such a big, powerful group. But I think it's important to become individuals, accept each other, and it starts with you. It starts with you. So I tell my students, I say, you have to start reaching out when you come to this particular country, and don't think other people want to reach out to you, but rather you raise your hands and you reach out to the other person first, instead of accepting and hoping that, hey, why aren't other people talking to me? Why aren't other people trying to make friends with me? So when I go to a foreign country, I always say, hey, this is me. I reach out my hand. I'm so and so. I'm from this country. I think that mentality would be very important, living in times like this, because the world is, no matter what we say about globalization, it's going to happen. There's a lot of anti-globalization sentiment right now, but it's happening. The world is not going to turn back. We will never become isolated anymore, because we are thrown into this digital universe right now that people are connected. I mean, isn't it beautiful that we start to understand each other because we are able to converse in this digital universe? Prita, what do you
Yes, I
say?
totally agree. I totally agree with you. I mean, coming from, for me, like having the opportunity and the privilege to study in two different countries and to gain knowledge, I think that's a very important aspect in my life. And I've really grown to be the person I am, and I've actually shared my experience with my own students also. So, I mean,
Yeah,
my students have also learned a lot from me. And I think, as life goes by, when we meet new people, we tend to also learn to adapt and somehow learn from how other people live their lives. And I think everything can be a learning experience. That'd be a good thing as well, Vicky. Yes, I really
yeah.
enjoy sharing my experiences with you as well.
Yeah, we're um 49 minutes into our live podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow,
If you're tuning in with us, you can see that the numbers go up and down. People are coming in and watching us actually.
I've
Wherever
noticed.
you
Yes,
are,
yeah.
please, yeah, drop a note here and tell us which country you're from. And we invite you to have coffee with us. My coffee is here. Have a coffee
I've
with
got no
us.
coffee.
Not too heavy going, but we always want to share, particularly with an international audience. I welcome Prita to have this conversation with us tomorrow. Ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen, you're
tune in.
looking at us. Tune in at the time that I will not disclose, so you will always be checking on Facebook to see when we get
I
on
will
live.
WhatsApp you.
Um, yeah.
All
So,
my
ladies
friends,
and
yeah.
gentlemen, come on to tell us about boys and men. We're talking about women and girls today. You can tell us about boys and men, and I hope to share with you, Prida, my journey as a podcaster. how things are different for me and how I've grown as a person because I'm able to talk to people from all parts of the world, having deep conversations rather than just at hi and bye or just looking at them as a tourist. But I think it's so important to be able to have deep conversations with people all over the world, knowing where they're from. Of course, they just represent themselves, right? We do know that they represent themselves, but it's always important to have global conversations. So I welcome Prida for today's first episode. So ladies and gentlemen, come on here, get to know Prida, the beautiful, she's either here or here, but we're definitely here in front of the background, the backdrop of iconic Singapore Marina Bay Sands. And we want to welcome you to Singapore. And hopefully, we all are good testimonies of lovely, wonderful Singapore. Um, I want to welcome everyone to join us tomorrow. The topic of women and girls and how our values and environment, including our education and our upbringing, has made us as women today, and the opportunities presented to us. Definitely, my mom, she grew up at a different space. Opportunities wasn't given to her, so I do um, appreciate what the world has given to us. Prida will be with us. Prida, would you like to sign off in the next 15 seconds and come
Okay,
back to
so
us tomorrow?
oh yes, sure. I mean, I had a great time talking to Vicky. We did share our experiences, and of course, tomorrow I will join the session again. Looking forward to see you guys, everyone. Hope to see you all. All the best. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, and I hope to share with everyone my growth as a human being, as a woman, just as a human being, and any of you who would like to join us to talk about men and boys, we really invite you to. So again, a state of our world, humanity, for better or for worse, a very social talk today after all the heavy talks for the past 2 weeks. Again, a shout out to the guest who's going to come on next week. We're going to talk more about AI and humanity, and also more conversations about values and violence, and probably going on different platforms for the show, like going on to x.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and really come back to us tomorrow. We enjoyed this session so much, Prida. So, welcome, Prida, to
All
the
right.
podcast series, State of Our World. See you tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow.